Hi everyone, it's Christina. I wanted to come on here and just make a video because on my last video, Hollywood Star 2000 asked DAT tips video, question mark. So I thought it would be fun to come on here and just tell you guys about my experience and also give you guys some tips for the DAT. First, I thought I would start off with a story time of my DAT experience because it was crazy. It was literally hectic. My test almost got invalidated. Anyways, the test, if you don't know about the DAT, it's basically like a standardized test that you have to take to get into dental school. So you have to sign up months in advance. You have to schedule a date. It's super expensive. I forgot exactly how much it is, but it's like, I remember spending more than $300 on it. I think it's like $350 or more dollars around there. It was 300 and something. So it's a lot of money to take, and there's a lot on the line. The test is also ridiculously long. It's like 5 hours. I might be exaggerating, but it's like super long. It's a stressful environment. You go in, you have lockers, you have to put your stuff in your lockers, and I was under the impression that I could bring a snack, so during my 15-minute break, I could get it. They told me I had to put my snack in the locker. Then you have to go through a metal detector. They roll up your sleeves and your pants to make sure that you're not hiding anything. You have to sign in and out. They need your social security number, your ID, and I'm pretty sure they took some fingerprints. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they took some fingerprints. So it's like the whole deal. Also, the entire time, as soon as you step into the building, there's notices everywhere that you are being audio and video recorded at all times. So you're just being watched, and they take this very seriously, which I understand because it is serious, but I think that all of that hype and all that pressure doesn't really help with relaxing and trying to do the best that you can. So I definitely was not prepared for that. I had heard that it was extra, but I did not realize it was that extra. So you have someone escort you, you're in a cubicle, and you have a camera right here, and it's watching you, and you're being audio and video recorded, so that's a little freaky. And you have to put your ID on the side of your table so that if they come by regularly to make sure like nobody's talking or nobody's cheating, which they make it impossible to cheat, and why would you even want to cheat? But anyways, the scrap paper is laminated on both sides. You have a dry erase marker, and you get a little cloth so that you can wipe it off. So I'm taking my DAT, and then I get to my 15-minute break. So I leave, and the woman that's working there now, because I think like 2 hours has passed, the woman that was working there now is different from the woman who was working in the morning. And I said, hey, like I'm taking my DAT, this is my break, can I go get my snack? It's in my locker. And she was like, no, you actually can't access your locker. And I was like, whatever. Couldn't get my snack, so I just drank water, went to the bathroom, whatever. Which is not fair because I've talked to other people who have taken the DAT and they were allowed to get their snacks, so whatever. So then I come back and the woman's there and she was like, I'm sorry, ma'am, we had to shut down your computer and you might not be able to continue the DAT. And so I was like, at first my thought process was this has to be a joke. Like, I don't know, it's just there's so much built up on this moment, and I've been preparing so much for this moment, and then it could all be for nothing. You know what I mean? It was just like the world slipped from under me. So I said, well, why? What happened? She told me that another student, he was a guy, he sat at my seat, and because there's a button that you click to say that you're ready to move on and you're done with your 15-minute break. He pressed the button and he started my test. Now the next section of my exam was a reading section. So that's, for me personally, everybody's different, but for me I needed the most time on the reading because I really wanted to like read the articles, answer the questions, and it's kind of hard to prepare for that section because you never know what your article is going to be about. It could be about something that maybe you know a lot about and you studied a lot in undergrad, or it could be about a subject that's unfamiliar to you. So apparently he sat at my seat and he started my exam. And then he realized that he was taking the wrong exam. He was at the wrong seat, so they had to shut the computer down. So first of all, I'm sure the kid was super nervous. I don't know who he is, but I'm sure he was super overwhelmed and nervous and he just wasn't paying attention. But how could you sit at the wrong seat? I mean, my ID was right there, which is a girl. Like, you see the ID that's a girl, and my scrap paper was there, which wasn't his handwriting. Also, he was an MCAT student. Like, he was taking the MCAT. So, I don't know what the MCAT screen looks like, but I imagine it's different from the DAT. I don't know. And then, now looking back at the situation, I think it's actually the people's fault, not the guy's fault, because supposedly you're supposed to be escorted to your seat, like to and from. You have to raise your hand and you have to get an escort to come and they have to walk you out and they guide you. So they were trying to like say it was the guy's fault, the student's fault, but now that I look, and in the moment I was nervous, so I just like accepted the story. But now that I look back, I think it must have been their fault because they had to have escorted him to the wrong seat. I really felt like I was going to pass out. I had to hold on to something and I had to breathe. And I was just like thinking, okay, like I just have to make the most out of the situation. So I asked them, I was like, what happens now? And they're like, we've never had this situation happen before. We're just gonna have to turn on your computer and hope that your test like stopped where it was supposed to stop and you're gonna lose time now on that section. And that's like the worst thing that you can hear because they don't give you that much time for the amount of questions that you get. So losing time is a big deal. So I sat at my seat. Oh, and they said that it could also possibly be invalidated because technically someone else sat at my seat, and they have that all like on video and audio recording, and they have like, it could look like somebody else was, I don't know if it was cheating or like somebody else sat in my seat, and that's just invalid. Like that makes it invalid. Also, I was thinking about the amount of money that it would cost to reschedule another exam. So I sat back down, whatever. I finished the test. I tried to get over it. And then they give you your score right away. But before they give you your score, you have to fill out a survey. So I filled out the survey and I went off. Like, I wasn't rude because I wanted them to listen to me, but I was just saying, like, this is what happened to me and this is unacceptable. Like, so much is on the line. And if I click this button and my scores are not up, or if they tell me that my test is invalidated, then I want to take the test for free because this is not my fault and I don't have the money to pay for another $300 and something to take an exam when there was a mistake that was not of my doing. Then I clicked and they tell you like your overall score and then they tell you all the scores that you get per section. I didn't even look at the overall score. I just immediately zoomed in on the reading section because that's the one that I lost time in. And actually I was very pleased with my score. My score in reading was higher than my average score. So I was like, okay, it's good. And I also was just like relieved that there was a score there and that my test did go through. Let me know if you had any crazy experiences with your DAT. So now we'll move on to some DAT preparation advice. Number 1, don't tell anybody when your exam is scheduled. Like I told my parents, but I know some other people didn't even tell their parents because their parents were putting too much pressure. And it's not that they mean to. They're just curious and they want to know when you do take it. But I don't know, I think it's better if you just don't tell anybody, keep it to yourself, and if people ask you like, oh, did you schedule it yet? Or you just say, oh, I'm planning to maybe schedule it around this time or something. Number 2, take a practice test before you start studying at all. Just completely blank, go in and take the test. And when I say take a practice test, well, I took the Kaplan practice tests because they mimic what it's going to be like in real life. There are some practice tests that are in a book, and that's just not realistic because you have to get accustomed to taking it on the computer. And on a book, you can highlight and you can circle and you can do things like that, but on a computer, you can't. So I suggest taking a practice exam before you start studying so that you get an idea of where you're at. It's okay if your scores are bad. And if your scores are good, then great. But if they're bad, then you kind of know, you get an idea of what you need to study first and what you need to tackle first. Tip number 3. I personally did a Kaplan course. Everybody's different. I've spoken to some people who say that they did not find the course helpful, but I personally found the course helpful because you get a practice test and then you have different sections. And in the Kaplan course, they have teachers that reteach you the information, but in a way that the DAT will ask. So they teach you tricks. They say, oh, this is a concept in Gen Chem, and this is the right answer, but the DAT might ask it like this, or the DAT will use this synonym, and you might not be familiar with the synonym. Also, I liked it because in undergrad, I really liked all of my math classes, but I used a calculator. And in Gen Chem, we were also allowed to use a calculator. But on the DAT, you don't have a calculator. And they ask you about exponents, they ask you about log. So it's not that difficult to do without a calculator, but you just have to learn it. If you were to take the DAT, always practicing with the calculator, and then you're there and then you're frazzled, that's not a good way to prep. So I highly recommend getting a Kaplan course, invest in it. I think it's worth it, and it also shows your improvement and what you need to work on. So for example, I was very good at Gen Chem and organic chemistry, but my bio score started off really low. So I knew I had to tackle bio better, and I was getting tripped up by answer choices and wording of questions. But because of the Kaplan course, I really feel like I improved and I was able to get the score that I did. Also, don't freak out. I know that's a lot easier said than done, but practice meditating and practice like taking control of your breathing, and just try not to get too nervous because your information is there. It's just a test on endurance, and a lot of people actually score low on their quantitative reasoning, which is the math section, because it's last and because you're kind of rushing through and you're almost done. Don't do that. Take the time, take breaths, and just be confident in yourself and in your ability. My 5th tip was to take several practice tests, but I already touched on that. So tip number 6 is schedule to take your exam before the application opens. That's just my personal preference. I know plenty of people who took their exam after they sent out their applications, but I personally wanted to take my exam before the application opened so that I could have an idea of where to apply and where I could get in, because there wasn't really a specific school. I mean, I had like my favorites, but I wanted, once you get your DAT score, you kind of get an idea of which schools you could potentially go into, because some schools will say, we definitely will not accept you, or we definitely won't accept any scores below 16, let's say, in any section. So you just have to I just feel like it's better to take the DAT before the application opens. DAT scores aren't everything. They really, really look at you as a whole. They look at your GPA, they look at your extracurriculars, they look at your personal statement. So your DAT isn't everything. It is important, but it is possible to get in with a mediocre score if you have really good letters of rec, a really good personal statement, and a really good GPA. So that's all the advice that I can think of for now. But let me know if you have any questions down below, and I hope you enjoyed my video, and good luck everyone!